At his launch event, my daughter's boyfriend ridiculed me as a fossil librarian. His investors chuckled. I stayed composed, went home, examined his code, and his $3.2 million startup collapsed. He called me a dinosaur librarian right to my face in front of his investors. They laughed, and in that moment, as the snickers echoed through that gleaming conference room, I knew exactly how I was going to dismantle everything he'd built. The only question was if my daughter would ever forgive me for it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is David Harper. I'm 62 years old, and for the past 37 years, I've been a research librarian at the Austin Public Library. Now, when most people hear librarian, they picture someone shushing teenagers or stamping due dates on paperbacks. And that's fine. I stopped correcting those assumptions around 1995. The truth is, modern research librarianship is more about database architecture, digital archives, and complex information systems than it is about dusty old books. I've spent the last 2 decades helping researchers, students, and yes, even tech entrepreneurs navigate information networks, trace citation trails, and verify sources. I taught myself Python, SQL, enough JavaScript to be dangerous, and I understand GitHub better than most folks half my age. I archive open source projects in our digital collection. I know how information is really built, but none of that mattered to Marcus Webb. You see, Marcus was my daughter Sarah's boyfriend. He was 32, a Stanford MBA, drove a Tesla, and wore sneakers that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. He had that particular brand of confidence that comes from never being told no. From growing up in Palo Alto with venture capitalist parents. He was everything I wasn't. Sarah met Marcus 6 months before all this blew up. She was in digital marketing. He was pitching his startup, Velocity Analytics. Within months, they were serious. Soon, she moved into his downtown loft. And then came the family dinner. "So, David," he said, cutting into his steak with almost aggressive precision. "Sarah tells me you work at the library. That's nice. Do you enjoy it?" The way he said library made it sound quaint, like I told him I made buggy whips for a living. "I do," I replied, 37 years and counting. He scoffed. "Wow, same place the whole time? That's stable. I get restless, always looking for the next challenge, the next disruption." He just raised $3.2 million for Velocity Analytics, which he explained would revolutionize e-commerce by using machine learning to predict purchasing decisions. As he talked, something nagged at me. Bits and pieces of what he described felt familiar, like something I'd read about. But I couldn't place it. Sarah, who was usually so sharp, just beamed at him, squeezing his hand. Over the next few months, my daughter slowly started to disappear. Sunday, calls turned into every other Sunday, then into apologetic emojis. When we did talk, Marcus was always there, or she was distracted, or they had investor dinner plans. "You don't like him, do you?" she said one evening, after I'd mentioned how long it had been since I'd seen her. "I didn't say that. You don't have to. I can tell. Marcus says you're threatened by successful people. It's a generational thing. I'll let it go," picking that fight wouldn't bring her back. Then, the invitation arrived. Velocity Analytics product launch celebration. Sarah called, full of excited anticipation. "You're coming, right, Dad? It's really important to Marcus that you're there. He wants to show you what he's built." Something in her voice, a fragile hope, made me say yes, even though I knew it was a mistake. The launch was exactly what you'd imagine. Exposed brick Edison bulbs, craft cocktails with names like The Disruptor. I wore the only suit I owned, the one from Sarah's college graduation, and immediately felt like an alien. Sarah, looking beautiful but strangely distant, found me near the entrance. "Marcus is presenting in 20 minutes. I have some investors to talk to first, but we'll catch up afterward." "Okay." And then she was gone. I nursed a beer, watching the tech crowd network, tossing around terms like growth hacking and burn rate. I felt like an anthropologist. Then Marcus took the stage. I'll give him credit. He was good, charismatic, slick. Velocity Analytics, he declared, represents a fundamental breakthrough in predictive consumer modeling. Our proprietary algorithm analyzes 17,000 unique data points per user, creating behavioral fingerprints that can predict purchasing decisions with 93% accuracy. The room applauded. Sarah, near the front, was recording him on her phone, absolutely glowing. As he clicked through slides, that nagging feeling returned. A strong sense of déjà vu, but more specific. He said, "We built this from the ground up. Every line of code written by our core team. This isn't standing on the shoulders of giants. This is innovation from first principles." That's when it clicked. 6, maybe 7 months ago, I'd helped a graduate student find documentation for an open source project called Open Commerce Insights. It was a machine learning framework for e-commerce analytics, collaboratively built, beautiful code, elegant architecture. Released under the GPL license, meaning anyone could use it, modify it, but had to release their modifications under the same open license and give proper attribution. The architecture Marcus was describing, the 17,000 data points, even the phrase behavioral fingerprints. It was all from Open Commerce Insights. Discreetly, I pulled out my phone. The GitHub repository was still active. I scrolled through the documentation, and there it was, the same architectural approach, the same technical methodology, even some of the same language Marcus was using. My hand started to tremble as I checked the license, GPL v3. Very clear terms. Very specific requirements. I looked up. Marcus was confidently fielding investor questions about scalability, competitive advantages, intellectual property. "Our code is completely proprietary," he announced. "We filed for patents on 17 separate algorithmic innovations." The room erupted in applause. Sarah was still recording. I slipped out. I needed air. I needed to think. Outside, the Texas heat still radiated from the pavement. I stared at my phone, refreshing the GitHub page, hoping I'd been mistaken. But the code was there, open source, GPL licensed. Unless Marcus had somehow independently invented an identical system, he'd taken it, claimed it as his own, and was raising millions on a lie. "Dad," Sarah's voice, concerned. She followed me out. "Are you okay? You left in the middle of Marcus's Q&A." "I'm fine. Just needed some air." She studied me, that look she'd had since she was a kid, the one that meant she knew I was lying. "You hate it. You hate him. You hate this whole thing." "I don't hate anything, Sarah." "Then why did you leave? This is the biggest night of Marcus's life, and you couldn't even stay." Her words were sharp, cutting. I wanted to tell her everything right then, but I saw in her eyes that she wouldn't believe me. She'd think I was jealous, trying to sabotage her happiness. "I'm sorry," I said instead. "You're right. I should go back inside." "No," she crossed her arms. "Marcus was right about you. You can't handle that someone from my generation is actually succeeding. You spent 37 years in the same building, stamping books and alphabetizing shelves, and you can't stand that Marcus built something real in less time than you've been at the same desk." Each word landed like a physical blow. "That's not fair, Sarah, isn't it? Marcus has $3.2 million in funding. He's creating jobs. He's innovating. What have you ever built, Dad?" I could have told her a lot of things. About the digital archive system I designed that 17 libraries used. About the grant proposal that brought internet access to underserved communities. About the countless students and researchers I'd helped. Instead, I just said, "You should get back inside. Marcus will be wondering where you are." She looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something that hurt more than her words. Disappointment. "Yeah," she said finally, "I should." She went back inside. I went to my car, but I didn't go home. I drove to the library. The building was empty, just the security lights and the familiar smell of paper and possibility. I went to my office, powered up my computer, and started digging. Research is what I do, and when you know where to look, you can trace almost anything back to its source. I cloned the Open Commerce Insights repository. Then I pulled every public detail from Velocity Analytics, blog posts, documentation, demo videos. By 2 a.m., I had 43 separate instances where Velocity Analytics implementation matched Open Commerce Insights exactly. Not similar, identical. Variable names, comment structures, even spacing. Marcus hadn't just been inspired by Open Commerce Insights. He'd taken it, stripped the attribution, rebranded it, claimed it as his own. I should have felt triumphant, vindicated. Instead, I felt sick, because I knew what I had to do, and I knew what it would cost me. I spent the next 3 days verifying everything methodically. I reached out to Patricia Chan, one of the core Open Commerce Insights developers. Her response came within an hour. This is a blatant GPL violation. We need to take action. She connected me with other developers and a lawyer specializing in open source licensing. They were grateful, angry, and absolutely determined. We'll send a cease and desist first, the lawyer explained. Give him a chance to make it right. If he refuses, we file suit and contact his investors. How long? I asked. How long until his investors know? If he doesn't comply, she said, 3, maybe 4 days. News travels fast in the tech world. I hung up, staring at my phone. I could still walk away. Let him build his empire on stolen code. It would collapse eventually, wouldn't it? Maybe long enough for Sarah to see him for who he was on her own terms. Or I could do what I knew was right and lose my daughter in the process. The choice should have been easy. It wasn't. That night, Sarah called. First time in 2 weeks, she'd initiated contact. Dad, she said, I want to apologize. I was really harsh the other night. Marcus said I should call you. Marcus said that. My throat tightened. Yeah, he feels bad. He wants to make it right. We wanted to come to dinner this weekend. His parents are flying in from Palo Alto. He wants you to meet them, like officially, as family. Sarah, I need to tell you something. Can it wait? I'm actually at the office helping Marcus with investor follow-ups. It's been crazy since the launch. 3 more VCs want to meet with us next week. It's important. It is important. Is it about Marcus? Because, Dad, I really need you to try with him. I know he's different from what you're used to, but he's brilliant and ambitious, and he makes me happy. Can't that be enough? I could hear the hope in her voice, the desperate plea for me to just accept this. And I thought about how utterly broken she would be when this all came out, how betrayed she'd feel, how she might even blame me for not warning her sooner. Dinner sounds good, I heard myself say. Text me the details. I hung up and immediately called Patricia Chan back. We need to move faster, I told her. Before the weekend. The cease and desist letter was sent to Marcus Webb and Velocity Analytics on Thursday morning. By Thursday afternoon, Sarah's phone was ringing off the hook. By Friday, tech blogs were running the story. By Saturday, 3 of Marcus's investors had pulled their funding. Sarah didn't call me. She didn't text. For 3 days, there was just silence from her end while I watched the story explode online. The evidence was damning. Side-by-side code comparisons, original development timelines, testimony from developers, and Marcus's own confident statements claiming proprietary innovation, which made it clear this wasn't an innocent mistake. Tech Twitter was merciless. The think pieces wrote themselves. Asterisk the dangers of move fast and break things culture. Why open source licensing matters. The Stanford MBA who forgot about intellectual property. Asterisk on Tuesday, a week after the launch party, my doorbell rang at 9 p.m. It was Sarah. Her eyes were red, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing sweatpants and one of my old UT Austin sweatshirts. Did you know? She asked, her voice raw. At the launch party? When you left early, did you already know? I stepped aside to let her in. She walked past me, into the living room. The same living room where she'd done homework, where we'd watched movies after her mother died, where I taught her chess. I suspected, I said. I confirmed it that night. And you didn't tell me. Would you have believed me? She sank onto the couch. No, probably not. She was quiet for a long moment. He's been lying to me about everything. The code, the investors, even his parents. Did you know his dad isn't a venture capitalist? He's an accountant in Palo Alto. His mom's a teacher. Marcus made up this whole background because he thought it sounded better. I sat down beside her, careful to maintain some distance. The lawyers say he's going to lose everything, she continued. The investors are suing him for fraud. The open commerce developers might press criminal charges. And she stopped, swallowed hard. I moved in with him, Dad. I left my apartment. I've been helping him pitch to investors, using my firm's resources, my contacts, people I've worked with for years. And now they all know I was part of this. You didn't know. Doesn't matter. That's not how it looks. My boss called me in yesterday. They're evaluating my involvement, which is corporate speak for you're probably fired. Sorry, sweetheart. Are you? She turned to look at me directly. You exposed him. You're the one who contacted those developers. I saw your name in the filings. David Harper, research librarian. Initial source of evidence. So, are you sorry? Or are you glad you were right about him? It was a fair question. An important question. I'm not glad, I said carefully. I'm not glad you're hurting. I'm not glad your career is affected. I'm not glad Marcus turned out to be someone who would lie to you. But I'm not sorry I did what I did. It was the right thing to do. The right thing. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. He stole some code. That's what this is all about. Some code that was free anyway, that anyone could use. Not like that. Not claiming it as original work. Not raising millions of dollars by lying to investors. But you didn't have to be the one to report it. You could have let someone else figure it out. No one else was going to figure it out, Sarah. I'm probably one of maybe a dozen people in Austin who would have recognized what Marcus did. This is what I do. I trace information. I verify sources. I understand how intellectual property works in the digital age. I saw something wrong, and I had the knowledge to prove it. So what? You're a hero now? You saved the tech world from the bad man. No, I'm just someone who couldn't ignore what I knew. She stood up abruptly, pacing. You don't understand what you've done. Everyone I know, everyone in my professional circle, they all know. They know my boyfriend built a company on stolen code, and they know my dad is the one who brought it down. Do you know what that makes me look like? Either I'm complicit or I'm stupid. There's a third option, I said quietly. That you're someone who was lied to by someone you trusted. That's not stupidity. That's not complicity. That's just being human. She stopped pacing, her back to me. Her shoulders were shaking. I love him, Dad. Or I thought I did. I don't even know anymore. Was any of it real? Did he ever actually care about me? Or was I just useful? Good connections, good network, good cover. I stood and went to her, put my hand on her shoulder. This time, she didn't pull away. I don't know, I admitted. I like to think some of it was real, but people who lie about one thing usually lie about many things. She turned and buried her face in my shoulder, and for the first time since she was a teenager, my daughter cried in my arms. We stood like that for a long time. Eventually, she pulled back, wiped her eyes with the sleeve of the sweatshirt. I need to ask you something, she said, and I need you to be honest. Always. Did you do this because it was the right thing to do? Or did you do this because you wanted Marcus gone? I thought about that carefully. Both, I said finally. I wanted him gone because I saw how he talked down to you. How he made you feel like you had to apologize for me, for my career, for the choices I've made. I didn't like who you were becoming around him, but I wouldn't have acted on that alone. I acted because what he did was genuinely wrong. Those developers spent years building something for the community, and he stole it. The investors gave him millions based on a lie. That's fraud. That matters. She nodded slowly. I quit my job before they could fire me. I'm moving back home for a while if that's okay. I can't afford my apartment without Marcus splitting the rent, and I don't have the energy to fight with him about the lease. Your room is exactly how you left it. With the posters of boy bands I liked in 8th grade? I'm afraid so. She almost smiled. Dad, yeah. Thank you for being someone I can come home to, even when I'm stupid, even when I yell at you and say terrible things. You're never stupid. You're human. We all make mistakes. The important thing is what you learn from them. She stayed that night in her old room. I heard her crying through the wall around midnight and had to stop myself from going to her. She needed to process this on her own. The next morning, I made breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, the same breakfast I'd made her every Saturday when she was growing up. She came downstairs, looking exhausted but calmer. What happens now? She asked, picking at her eggs. To Marcus, I mean. Legally, hard to say. He'll probably settle with the open commerce developers to avoid criminal prosecution. The investors might get some of their money back, but probably not much. His company is finished. And me? You rebuild. You find a new job. You move forward. You're 28, Sarah. You have time to recover from this. Do you ever regret it? She asked suddenly. Staying at the library all those years. Never chasing something bigger? I considered that. No. I built something that mattered. Maybe it wasn't flashy. Maybe it didn't come with venture capital funding or TechCrunch articles, but I helped thousands of people. I preserved knowledge. I connected people to information they needed. That's not small. That's not insignificant. Marcus said you were washed up. I know he was wrong. I know that too. She was quiet for a moment. I need to learn how to value the right things. I got so caught up in his world, in the excitement of it all, that I forgot what actually matters. That's not an easy lesson. Some people never learn it. Did Mom know about the library stuff? The database work? All the technical things you do? She knew. She was proud of it. She used to joke that I was the most interesting person no one had ever heard of. Sarah smiled. The first genuine smile I'd seen from her in months. I like that, she said. The most interesting person no one had ever heard of. It's not a bad way to live. Over the following weeks, I watched Sarah put herself back together. She landed a new job at a smaller marketing firm, one that valued integrity over flash. She started calling me again on Sundays, coming over for dinner on Wednesdays. Marcus disappeared from social media. I heard through the tech community grapevine that he'd moved back to California, working for his father's accounting firm. The lawsuits were settled quietly. The open commerce developers got a public apology and a licensing agreement. The investors got a painful but important lesson about due diligence. 3 months after everything fell apart, Sarah and I were having dinner at my house when she said, I want to learn what you do. The research stuff, the database work. Will you teach me? Why? Because I realized something. What Marcus did was only possible because most people don't understand how digital information works. They don't know how to verify sources, trace code, origins, check licenses. If more people had your skills, people like Marcus couldn't get away with what he did. So I taught her. We spent Saturday mornings at the library. I showed her how to navigate GitHub repositories, understand licensing terms, trace information lineage. She was a quick learner, saw connections I hadn't thought of, asked smart questions. You know what's funny, she said one Saturday, scrolling through an open source project's commit history. Marcus was right that you taught me something. Just not what he thought. What's that? That real strength isn't about being the loudest or the flashiest or the most confident. It's about being thorough, being honest, being someone people can trust. You spent 37 years building that reputation. That's worth more than any startup valuation. I didn't trust myself to speak for a moment. Also, she continued, grinning, now I'm pretty sure you could run circles around most tech bros when it comes to actual technical knowledge. They just never bothered to ask. Well, I do try to maintain an air of mystery. She laughed, and it sounded like home. 6 months later, Sarah landed a job at a digital rights organization, working on open source advocacy and licensing compliance. She uses the research skills I taught her every day. She's happy. More importantly, she's herself again. We had coffee last week, and she told me about a case she was working on, another startup that had violated GPL terms. I thought about you, she said, about how you could have just let Marcus get away with it. How you risked our relationship to do the right thing. I don't know if I told you this, but that takes courage. I'm not sure I have it. You have it, I told her. You proved that by walking away, by rebuilding, by choosing work that matters over work that pays. I learned from the best. As I sit here now, in my office at the library, surrounded by 37 years of accumulated knowledge and connections, I think about what Marcus said at that dinner all those months ago. About being restless. About always looking for the next challenge, the next disruption. He was right that I stay in one place, but he was wrong about what that meant. I didn't stay because I lacked ambition. I stayed because I was building something that mattered. Every database I organized, every researcher I helped, every student I taught to verify sources and trace information, that was all part of something larger than myself. A foundation, a legacy. Marcus built his company in 18 months, and it collapsed in 2 weeks. I built my career over nearly 4 decades, and it's still standing, still helping people, still making a difference. And my daughter, the most important thing I ever built, she's standing too. That's what Marcus will never understand. Real strength isn't measured in how fast you rise. It's measured in what remains when the lights go out and everyone stops watching. My name is David Harper. I'm a research librarian, and I wouldn't trade what I do for all the venture capital in Silicon Valley. because the strength of what you build depends on the integrity of your materials. And I've always used the best,